Airports are some of the most heavily watched places on Earth. Thousands of cameras cover every runway, gate, hallway, and parking lot, all recording nonstop, all designed to catch anything out of the ordinary. Most of the time, that footage shows nothing more exciting than lost luggage or a missed connection. But every so often, an airport camera catches something that nobody can fully explain. An object in the sky that shouldn't be there, a person who vanishes in an instant, a figure that shouldn't exist at all. Today we're looking at some of the strangest things airport security footage has ever recorded. Chicago O'Hare is one of the busiest airports on the planet, which is exactly why what happened there in the fall of 2006 is so hard to dismiss. Late one afternoon, a ground crew worker preparing a United Airlines flight for pushback happened to glance upward and froze. Sitting almost motionless in the sky above the gate was a dark, disc-shaped object, gray and metallic, with no visible lights, no engine noise, and no obvious means of staying aloft. He wasn't the only one who saw it. Word spread across the ramp within minutes, and soon a crowd of airline staff, pilots, mechanics, supervisors, had gathered outside to look up at the same thing. By the time it was over, more than a dozen employees had independently described an identical object hanging in place before eventually launching upward and disappearing through the cloud layer, leaving what witnesses swore was a clean, momentary hole in the clouds behind it. What makes the case unusual isn't just the sighting itself, but what happened afterward. The airline and the aviation authorities initially denied any knowledge of the event, only to have that denial fall apart once internal radio recordings became public through a records request. Those recordings captured airport staff asking control towers in real time whether anyone else could see the object. Officials eventually acknowledged the reports existed, offering an explanation involving a rare atmospheric effect that can produce a circular gap in cloud cover. The trouble with that explanation is that it doesn't easily account for something remaining stationary above a gate for several minutes before shooting straight up, nor does it explain why the object apparently didn't register on radar at all, the very fact investigators cited as their reason for not looking deeper. To this day, the O'Hare sighting remains one of the most witnessed, most documented, and least resolved UFO cases connected to a major American airport. Not every strange airport clip involves the sky. Some of the most viral footage ever recorded shows something happening right at ground level, in the space of a single video frame. During a live television segment filmed inside a European airport terminal, a camera crew was interviewing a sports figure near the baggage claim area. In the background, almost incidental to the shot, a woman in a blue coat could be seen standing near a luggage cart, chatting casually with someone beside her. Then, between one frame and the next, she was gone. No walking away, no blur of motion. She was simply absent from the shot that came right after. The clip spread rapidly online, racking up millions of views within a single day, with viewers offering every explanation from a camera glitch to something far stranger. It turned out the woman in question was a well-known former Olympic athlete working in sports broadcasting, which only added fuel to the story once people recognized her. When she eventually addressed the footage publicly, her explanation was almost disappointingly simple. She'd realized she was standing in the background of a live shot and stepped out of frame quickly to avoid disrupting the broadcast. Her timing happened to align almost exactly with the gap between the camera's frame captures, creating the illusion of an instantaneous disappearance. She herself joked that she must have moved like a ninja, though she admitted the real explanation was mostly luck. It's a rare case where the mystery was solved within days, but the footage still gets shared today as if the explanation never happened. Some airport footage is haunting not because of what it shows, but because of what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. In the summer of 2014, a young German man traveling abroad with friends got into a violent altercation during a vacation in Bulgaria. He was left with a jaw injury and hearing damage severe enough that a local doctor warned him not to fly, citing the risk of permanent damage from cabin pressure changes. His friends offered to stay with him, but he insisted they go home without him, planning to follow once he'd recovered enough to travel safely. Within a day of being left alone, his behavior changed dramatically. He called home in a whisper, convinced people were trying to harm him, and asked that his bank cards be canceled immediately. Hotel cameras captured him pacing hallways and peering anxiously out of windows through the night. The next morning, he went to the airport to be medically cleared for his flight home. While waiting, a stranger walked into the room, and without a word, he bolted. Airport security cameras tracked him sprinting through the terminal, past check-in counters and gates, out through the exit doors, across the parking area, and over a barbed wire perimeter fence into an open field beyond the airport grounds. He disappeared into the tree line on the other side and has never been found. Search efforts turned up nothing conclusive. A handful of possible sightings in the years since have all led nowhere, and his case remains open more than a decade later. Theories range from an acute psychological break brought on by trauma, exhaustion, and possibly a medication side effect, to something more deliberate. Whatever the truth is, it's locked inside roughly 60 seconds of runway footage that ends with a man vanishing into a sunflower field. Airport security exists specifically to stop people from doing what one particular traveler managed to do again and again. In late 2024, a middle-aged Russian national managed to board an international flight out of a major U.S. airport with no ticket and, according to investigators, no legal record of ever having left the country in years. When asked how she pulled it off, her explanation was almost absurdly casual. She said she simply walked on. Turned away at a standard checkpoint for lacking a boarding pass, she found her way instead into a crew-only security lane, blending in with a group of airline staff being screened and slipping through undetected. From there, she made her way to a gate for an international flight to Paris and boarded during the confusion of general boarding. She then spent the better part of an 8-hour transatlantic flight locked in a lavatory, telling crew members who checked on her that she was ill. It wasn't until after landing that airline staff realized she had never actually been on the passenger manifest. French authorities detained her. She attempted to claim asylum with an unusual justification involving fears of poisoning, and she was eventually sent back to the United States to face charges. What made the case even stranger was learning this wasn't an isolated incident. She had made at least one earlier attempt to breach airport security using the same crew blending tactic and had previously been found hiding in a secure bathroom at another international airport after claiming, falsely, to have just arrived on a flight that had no record of her. After being released on bail with an ankle monitor, she cut it off entirely and was later caught trying to cross into Canada. Convicted and given a sentence that amounted to time served, she was placed under supervised release with strict travel restrictions. Astonishingly, within months, airport cameras caught her again, this time bypassing a ticket counter entirely and boarding another international flight, once more going unnoticed by the crew until the aircraft was already over open ocean. How someone with an active federal conviction for exactly this offense managed to repeat it remains an open question for investigators. Not every piece of airport footage is mysterious in a supernatural sense. Some are simply devastating and made more haunting by how avoidable they appear in hindsight. During a nighttime departure at a major Denver airport, ground sensors along the perimeter fence triggered an alert as something approached from outside. The security operator monitoring the feed noticed movement near the fence line but attributed it to wildlife known to wander that stretch of the property, and the alert was dismissed. Minutes later, an aircraft accelerating for takeoff struck and killed a man who had scaled the perimeter fence and walked out onto the open airfield in the dark. Investigators later confirmed the fence itself hadn't failed structurally, it had simply been climbed. The man had a history of legal trouble, but no note or clear explanation was ever found, and how he reached that remote section of the airport in the first place was never established. The incident forced airport officials to publicly acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. Even with extensive sensor networks and camera coverage across a massive property, security still depends on a human being making the right call about what they're seeing on a screen in real time, and that judgment can fail. Some of the most disturbing airport footage isn't captured by the airport's own security system at all, but by whoever happens to be nearby when something goes catastrophically wrong. In one especially harrowing case, a truck driver sitting in a parking lot near a cargo airport had his dash camera running by pure chance when a departing cargo aircraft suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure moments after becoming airborne. An engine assembly separated from the wing during takeoff, and the aircraft, suddenly asymmetric and trailing fire, struggled to climb before crashing into an industrial area just beyond the airport perimeter. The resulting explosion was massive enough to be visible for miles and was captured almost entirely on that one dashboard camera, alongside airport surveillance angles that showed the initial failure in stark clarity. Investigators later traced the cause to a known structural weakness that had been flagged in prior incident reports involving the same aircraft type, raising hard questions about whether the disaster could have been prevented. It stands as a grim reminder that not every mystery caught on camera is unexplainable. Sometimes the footage simply documents, in painful detail, exactly how a tragedy unfolded. Not every strange airport story involves an object or a person who can later be identified. Shortly after a major Indian airport opened as a flagship modern facility, a rumor began circulating among staff that would grip the workforce for weeks. A pilot on final approach was said to have seen a woman in a white sari standing motionless on the runway, forcing him to abort his landing not once, but twice before she vanished on his third attempt. From there, the stories multiplied and diverged. As they tend to win, fear spreads faster than facts. A headless figure near an escalator, an unidentifiable shape near a cargo bay, something reportedly picked up by infrared equipment that operators described only as an unusual energy reading. No verified photograph or video of the figure ever surfaced publicly, despite persistent claims that footage existed. What had happened was very real. Security staff reportedly grew reluctant to patrol the more remote stretches of the airfield after dark, and some declined night shifts altogether. Airport management issued firm public denials, but the story never fully died, resurfacing periodically in local reporting for years afterward, a case where the absence of any hard evidence did nothing to slow the legend down. In late 2023, a live public webcam feed overlooking a runway at a major Mexico City airport caught something that lasted less than a single second. A dark, oval-shaped object crossed behind a parked aircraft in a smooth, level trajectory before disappearing off the other side of the frame. When slowed down, the object showed no wing motion, no erratic movement, and no visual blur typically associated with an insect passing close to the lens, details that quickly ruled out the simplest explanation for viewers scrutinizing the footage frame by frame. The clip spread quickly online, drawing predictable disagreement between viewers convinced it was nothing more than a bird or insect, and those pointing to the region's well-documented history of unusual aerial sightings, including a widely publicized set of infrared military recordings from years earlier. No official aviation statement was ever issued about the runway clip, and it remains, quite literally, a blinking mystery, a fragment of footage too brief to prove anything and too strange to fully dismiss. Our final story is less about hard evidence and more about how easily the mind fills in gaps when a scene looks wrong. A pilot parked on a nighttime tarmac at a Southeast Asian airport glanced toward a neighboring gate and saw something unsettling: a jet bridge, fully extended and lit, with no aircraft attached to it, and moving down that gangway, a line of shadowy figures walking with slow, deliberate purpose, some appearing to pull luggage behind them. He filmed it on his phone, and the footage spread rapidly once people connected the location to a fatal crash that had occurred there years earlier, framing the figures as passengers still going through the motions of a flight that ended in tragedy. The pilot who filmed it eventually offered a far more grounded explanation. What the camera had captured wasn't a scene on the empty jet bridge at all, but a reflection. Passengers walking through his own brightly lit gangway, mirrored onto the dark glass of the unused bridge across from him, creating the illusion of figures moving through a walkway with nothing attached to it. He even released a photo showing exactly how the angles lined up. It made almost no difference. The clip continues to resurface every year around Halloween, collecting fresh waves of views and the same reactions of alarm, as though the explanation had never been given at all. Proof that some stories survive not because they're true, but because people want them to be. From objects hanging silently in the sky to people who disappear in the space of a single frame, airport security cameras have captured no shortage of moments that defy easy explanation. Some of these mysteries have been solved. Others remain wide open, waiting for someone to finally explain what the footage really shows.